Om Tat Sat Divine Self. Welcome to Gyan Bhakti channel from Swami Nikhilananda. My humble prostrations to the all-pervading Brahman, to my worshipful Guruji, Swami Jyotirmayanandaji Maharaj, to Ram Parivar and all sages and saints, and to each of you divine soul watching today's satsang. We are currently studying the holy scripture Mysticism of Ramayana. Commentary is by my Guruji, Swami Jyotirmayanandaji Maharaj, narrated by myself, Swami Nikhilananda. So let's get started. Uh, as we were studying about the Sati and her getting consumed in fire, so we will see the mystical meanings of those things today. So as Sati's story dramatizes in such an interesting fashion, in the process of attaining self-realization or mukti, the relative intellect must allow itself to be burnt up by the fire of knowledge, the fire of samadhi. Once the intellect catches that fire, it becomes transformed. It is no longer the daughter of a vain personality like Daksha, no longer the daughter of the ego. It has been transformed into Uma, the daughter of Himalayas. Thus the need for Sati to be burnt up before Uma could come up. The Himalayas represent the glorious heights of mental advancement, a highly purified mind filled with thoughts that reach out to Brahman. As Narada confidently pointed out, such an intuitive intellect is destined to become wedded to Brahman, and nothing can alter that course. That is the journey towards our holy mukti, self-realization. The unfoldment of intuitive insight is associated with increasing austerity in the form of intense meditation, samadhi, and vichar. Vichar is spiritual inquiry. As Uma's long period of fasting symbolically suggests, this austerity is not limited in time but stretches on endlessly by the force of divine love. So we must be patient and continue our spiritual sadhana for a long period of time with faith and dedication. A devotee does not become impatient because there is an increasing internal response from the divine self and an experience of greater joy day by day. So the idea in our sadhana is not to really look at it as a terrible tapasya, but as we do the tapasya, as we do our daily duties, we should also add our spiritual dimension to it and enjoy the process. As this austerity continues, there is also increasing vairagya or dispassion. And that is an essential qualification to become a true sadhak. Sadhak, a spiritual aspirant who wants to walk on the holy path. Vairagya means when the world starts losing its control on you. You don't enjoy the world as much as you used to. Why? Because you have found something much more valuable. You revel in the glory of God's name. Things that are considered wonderful by the masses are spontaneously renounced by an aspirant. The world of material objects loses its appeal little by little. So it will not all happen at the same time. You have to continue the momentum for these worldly magnetic force to kind of fade away, until all objects become insignificant. But a stage will come in your life where material things are there as your tools, but you are not totally mesmerized by them. They cannot control you. Finally, in the highest level of samadhi, a yogi even turns away from his own chitta or mind, mystically breaking his identification with mind itself in a flowering of paravairagya or supreme dispassion. Comes a stage where you only focus on God. All the worldly things automatically follow you, but your focus is intensely trying to attain mukti, God realization, where you spiritualize your daily life in all its dimensions. That is Paraviragya, which means intense dispassion. Easily said in a short satsang, but to practice it, it takes a lifetime, sometimes many lives, depending on what we have brought from our past lives and how much effort we are putting in this life. So this is not a journey to rush, it is to enjoy the nectar but continue and be persistent. So the light of Paraviragya, the entire universe becomes as insignificant as a blade of grass, and then that too is renounced. And that is the practical experience of sages and saints and um, highly spiritual personalities who have touched or felt God. It is very much possible to do so, but we have to have that resolve and that will and bhakti. An aspirant must understand that making the body emaciated is not in itself a great attainment. It's not a The only objective is not to look externally thin and weak. Anyone can starve himself for 30 days and become all skin and bones, although even that takes some effort, but that is not the point of higher sadhana or higher spirituality. What is important on the spiritual path is to starve the body idea, an illusion that is filled with millions of fallacious calories. So body idea is an illusion. That is what we have to understand. Unless we do that and we keep on holding the body, we will not progress. A yogi must stop nourishing the idea that I am the body. And what should he do? Begin feeding the mind with the knowledge that I am the spirit. Therefore, we always say divine soul, blessed self, and that is how Om Tat Sat. These are the kind of things that we should relate, and when we talk to each other, when we converse, we should not be body centric. We should be spirit centric, soul centric. That is the form of spiritual diet practiced by true yogis. So they don't look at the physical attributes as much as the inside, which is more of the spiritual dimension. The seven sages or Saptarishis represent the principles presiding over the five senses, the mind and intellect. So the rishis, the seven rishis who came to test Parvati during her tapasya, is essentially that, five senses and mind and intellect. And it is important to pass that test with the seven rishis if we are to get deeper on this path. Like Uma, an aspirant must be tested by these seven principles in order to enter the realm of mystic unity. The tests that these sages give to Uma point out the contrast between the values of the worldly intellect and those of intuitive intellect. So when we talk about intellect, it's very important for us to fully understand that there is these degrees, professions, reading the worldly books that we do. We get worldly knowledge with that. We get a relative intellect. But intuitive intellect comes from grace of God, our devotion, our sincerity to walk on the spiritual path in a humble and dedicated way. And that comes through God's grace. It doesn't come through big degrees or big name and fame things that we get into in the worldly realm. So it's a completely different criteria. That is what we mean by intuitive intellect. It's also called pragya in Hindi, pragya, and that means the light of the self and being able to witness that, feel that within. From a worldly point of view, Shiva is certainly an inauspicious looking figure as he runs around without clothes, besmeared with ashes, entwined by hissing snakes and garlands of clanking skulls. That is what Daksha was looking at Shiva as. However, in the eyes of intuitive intellect and advanced aspirants, sages and saints, Shiva's nakedness symbolizes that he is bodiless. The ashes signify he is desireless. The snakes represent the psychic powers, and the skull symbolizes the supreme dispassion he has. Therefore, it is easy to see why such an intuitive intellect craves to be united with that most beautiful and sublime beloved. So, Parvati is the intuitive intellect, and Shiva is the beloved, is the soul, Brahman, the desire to be communing with that energy. So, this is the subtle meaning. When we read these stories, don't just think of them as stories. Try to go deeper into the mystical impact and how beautifully Swamiji is explaining each of these things. I hope you are also enjoying its opening up a dimension in your life where you can see the subtle mysteries that are hidden in these profound scriptures. This is Swami Nikhilananda. We'll continue this journey tomorrow. Om Tat Sat.